Welcome to the Investor Empowerment Series radio show, empowering your real estate investing with techniques, opportunities, and information, minus the BS and sales pitches. Now, please welcome the host of the Investor Empowerment Series, Joe Mueller, from the Tough as Nails Investment Syndicate, Joe Mueller.
Hey investors, I wanted to give a quick insider opportunity to the listeners out there who are currently doing deals or just getting started and looking to create more financial efficiencies for their real estate business. Introducing Investors Title Services, a much lower cost option for procuring the necessary title insurance policies for your real estate transactions. Think about how much money you've spent on title insurance in the past on either your current purchases or sales, and think about how much you'd be savings if just a couple $100s per transaction ended up back in your pocket. Well, now you can by optimizing the relationships that other investors have established that you currently need for your business. That's what we do here at Investors Title Services. If you're a fix and flipper, a wholesaler, or a buy and hold landlord, we specifically serve this small niche, offering you the best deal on title policy insurance. Call 847-443-9676 today to learn more about how you can save hundreds of dollars, if not more, on your next title insurance policy.
So for anybody who's new to our group, I'm Joe Mueller, organizer of the Investor Empowerment Series meetup. In the corner is Dan Clarton. He also runs the Real Estate Investing and Accountability meetup. We kind of work together to get this group to a good place and get everything going together. Dan normally does 99.9% of the talking, but he's not feeling good today, and his voice is probably going to go. So, guess what? I get to talk for once.
We're here like 10 minutes then?
Right. It'll be very quick. Yeah, you're here. So first things first, there was a flyer up at the table about a property in Wheaton. If you didn't get it, it's still out there. I can pass them out if you're interested. It's a rehab opportunity. A guy I know selling it for $115, and it's in a great area, Wheaton, right by a grade school and a middle school. It's probably worth about $250 fixed up. Needs a little small addition to get that. But if you're interested, it's over at the table in the front. Maybe you're interested. I don't know. And we had Frank. Did you want to get up and just talk about that deal real quick?
Sure. I'm Frank Petrucci. Moondance Properties is the name of my company. I have a property under contract in Arlington Heights, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. A little over 1,000 square feet. It's got a basement to be finished, partially finished already. I have it under contract for $230 after repair values, about $345, $350 neighborhood, and needs probably $45,000 to $50,000 in repairs, depending on how much you really wanted to do to it. I'm willing to assign the contract for $7,000. If you're interested, you want to take a look at it. I do have a couple of brochures with me, a couple flyers. Otherwise, I can get your info and be happy to send it to you after I'm out of case.
So what we'll do is, Frank, you send me that flyer. I'll send it out to everybody who attended in case they are interested.
Thank you.
So without further ado, we'll bring up Bill Powers. Bill and I have known each other for a couple of years. He's a rock star, love him to death. That's all I'm going to say, because he can do the rest for himself. Go for it.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for inviting me. I really appreciate it. My name is Bill Powers. Name of my business is RTO Property. I'm also involved in a RIA up in Lake County called the Lake County Property Investors. As you can see up here, I'm going to show you one of the presentations that I did up there. Just a brief summary of some of our properties that we've flipped or rented. So, but I wanted to start off with a little bit of background about myself and what I've done. But before I do that, I just wanted to get a show of hands. Can you raise your hand if you've done a flip already? Right? And more than 5? And more than 10? And more than 20? Okay, so we got some experienced investors. And how about rentals? Have you done a rental? More than 10? More than 20? More than 50? Okay, so some experience in the room as well on rentals. I just like to understand. I like to understand what the audience is. But our business, we started back in 2011. really started to buy rentals, and we did it in the Waukegan area. The way I got into the business is I just divested myself of a small manufacturing business, had a small nest egg, and my wife said, well, why don't we buy a rental in my hometown in Waukegan? And I said, are you crazy? Waukegan? And it's the depth of the recession. But we bought one, and then we bought another, and it kept going till right now we have a portfolio of a little over 200, mostly single-family homes, properties in Waukegan that we either own ourselves or we manage for others.
What other crazy ideas does she have?
Oh my God, yeah. She's a teacher. She grew up there, but it was completely against the trend, right, at the time. And that's, I think, what we have to find as investors is a way to kind of go against what maybe the common knowledge thinks. And right now there's a lot of people in flipping, so it makes you a little bit nervous, right? We started with actually a property in Mundelein to begin with before we got into our hometown of Waukegan. And I made every mistake in the book when we did that first property. I bought it for too much at the time, which was $84,000, and now it's probably worth $180. So it worked out. Took too long to rehab it. Spent too much on the rehab. Got a renter in there that was paying me by the week. Took 6 months to evict them. I made all the mistakes all up front. And if you get through that first one where you make a lot of mistakes, then hopefully you can move your way into bigger and better things. So. That's one of the things that kind of worked for us. We made strategic relationships in the beginning, and when you hear, I'm a big advocate or disciple of bigger pockets, right? So you hear them talk about building your team, and that's one of the things we were fortunate enough to do. We teamed up with contractors. Actually, one was a relative of my wife's when we first started, and that piece of it kind of helped us because we could dive into properties that were a little bit more distressed. So if I advocate you to do one thing as you're building up your businesses, it's build those strategic relationships that are going to help you not have to do everything all yourself, because you can't, and you have to find your strengths and do things that are going to make your business work. And I will say, I'm a little bit of a risk taker. I'm entrepreneurial at heart. I started a business in college that had a goofy idea for a handlebar. It's that loop in the front of the bicycle that you lean down on. Triathletes used it, or still use it today. I started a company that did that. It was called an Aero Bar, and then went into this label company. And so I'm a risk taker. You got to be a little bit of a risk taker in this business because you're taking a leap of faith. So. As far as building the rental portfolio, one of the things that I did is I built relationships with local banks that wanted to bring these loans in on rental properties in their portfolios, and that really helped to be able to allow us access to capital. They held the loans themselves. They didn't try to resell them. I didn't go to Fannie or Freddie lenders and try to work the business that way. I stuck with local credit unions and banks that could finance them. And what we do is buy 5 at a time, and then we take them to the bank, and they'd finance those 5 out at 80% of what we had in them. We take that cash and we go do it again, and we take that cash and go do it again, and it really did work for us. So, renting, I don't know, Joe mentioned it in the bio at all or in the information, but we do a unique model in our business. Or it's reasonably unique. We do what's called rent to own. Excuse me, with all of our single family homes. So what we do is we offer a rental property out that's more highly renovated than the average property in Waukegan or Beach Park or even Libertyville or wherever we're at. And we offer it on a rent-to-own program where the tenant can buy the property after a 3-year lease. All of our leases are 3 years. All of our leases require that you pay first month's rent, last month's rent, and security deposit up front before you move in. And they have an opportunity to buy us out of the house after a 1-year period. So anytime after that 1 year, they can take the house and buy it from us. They have to go get a mortgage and go through that same process like they do if they were just going to buy the home.
Now, do you set the price
when they move in? Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we do that we've learned our lesson a little bit in that. It's a good question, Chris. We've learned our lesson in that a little bit, in that some of the prices that we set were a little bit too low, right? So nobody anticipated this appreciation in the market. So houses that, you know, are now worth 130, we had 3 years ago set at 100 grand, and people pulled us, you know, took us out on those, right? We still made really good profits on those, but they could have been even more if we had anticipated a little bit of what the market was going to do. So now we started to do that a little bit in our business. But the execution on those is very, very limited. If you do decide to do a rent-to-own program, you know, consult your attorney and go through the process of building a contract that's going to work for you. But ours is set up as a rental agreement, and there's a separate clause in it that carves out that piece where you can buy the house out at an agreed upon price at the end of the contract. What we do.
The lease option on that, or?
Yeah. So what we do is we take $150 of the rent each month, and we say that is credit towards the purchase price of the house. So it reduces the price of the house. Either you can give them back that in cash so that they can use it for their down payment, or they can just reduce the purchase price. Normally, the mortgage brokers have asked that we just reduce the purchase price. That's the way it's worked out.
Do you do option consideration on the front end?
I'm not sure what you mean by option consideration, but they don't own the house. We own the house.
They pay you a non-refundable fee to keep from selling it.
I've just done one,
Okay.
right? We don't collect like a $5,000 or $10,000 or $20,000 fee up front in order for them to get into that contract. We just collect first month's rent, last month's rent, and security deposit. So, and there's some legislation too that you should be aware of that actually limits that fee that you should collect up front before it's considered something where you're becoming a mortgage broker, right? You have to be careful of that language and those requirements. But anyway, so that's our model. We charge probably 20+% more in our rental rates than other properties in Waukegan. Our average rent in Waukegan is a little bit over $1,350 a month for a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house. So probably similar to your Elgin out here, and it works for us. You know, we garner in a lot of population that went through a foreclosure, they went through a bankruptcy, they went through a short sale, they lost their home for a variety of reasons, and they need a nice place for their family to live. They have good jobs, but you know, they just they went through an event that caused them to lose their home. And the other thing we did in our business, and it's much harder to do today, but you know, we still look for those pieces of our business where we can stick to formulas. Is our original formula in rental was, for every $10,000 we invest, we wanted to make $200 in rent a month, right? So you do the math: $50,000 invested, you're going to rent for $1,000 a month. $60,000 invested, $1,200 a month. 70, $1,400. It's almost impossible today, at least in our markets, at least in what we're trying to buy. The properties are more distressed, so the rehabs are higher. But up until, you know, a year and a half ago, maybe a year ago, you still find them every once in a while. You know, I was just on the phone on the way here. You forge those relationships where you can find those houses from wholesalers or wherever. This was a municipality. They owned the house because of liens that were put against the house. They called me up. They said, "Hey, you've done a lot of good work in our town. Do you want to buy this house? We'll sell it to you for $12,000. And it's a wreck, but they know we'll do a good job, and you know, that'll hit formula. And our formula is that $10,000 invested, $200 in rent, and it works. So, boy, I'm really getting old. Let's see. Oh, so doing for others. So, you know, we started doing this just for ourselves, and then we got into doing it for other people. So I won't say it's like a turnkey, but it's a little bit different than that. We let the investor buy the house. We rehab it for them, and then we charge them a fee, because we didn't have the resources to buy all these houses ourselves, and there were a lot of good opportunities out there. So if I tell you to do, you know, another thing that might help you grow your business, that is network out, partner, do it with other people, do it for other people, use other people's capital, because there's a lot of ways to make money in this business. We did it with the rehabs. We charged our friends and clients and family 20% of the rehab cost, a $2,000 acquisition fee, and we charge 15% management fee, We use a management company called Secure Pay One to do the actual nuts and bolts of the management, but for the accounting work and we do property tax appeal, and that's a key thing too, property tax appeal, which I'll get into later. But trying to build your business with other streams of income is really a key aspect of this whole business too. So, and then we got into flips. Met somebody at an auction one time, and he was doing flips, I was doing rentals, and we exchanged ideas, and that kind of built that side of our business. So, anyways, let me get into a short presentation I did a while ago. We always talk about at our RIA what you want to achieve, and then we also show examples of properties that what we've done with different properties in Waukegan and what they cash flow and how they cash flow. These two properties actually have been taken out by the actual homeowners. This is one that was probably worth 130, and we had a rent to own price on it of $100,000. They took it out. We bought it for 40, put 20 into it. We still made a great profit, but there's a lot more upside if you're just careful with those kind of contracts. So this one we've held for a long time. That one we've held for 6 years. But this is just an example of one that we did in Round Lake. I think this was about 2 years ago. This was a condo, 2-bedroom townhome. This is what we painted it for, put in kitchen cabinets and countertops, some used appliances, flooring. The project all in was about $15,000. We bought it on a sheriff's sale for $1 over minimum bid, which doesn't happen a lot anymore. I don't know how many go to sheriff's sales now. Yeah, it's just tough. It's really, really challenging. So this is post rehab, obviously. We do stainless, and this one didn't have granite, but a lot of our rentals do now have granite because it attracts a higher end clientele. I got into this business, and somebody said to me, they gave me the advice, just charge as little as possible in your rent, do as little on the rehab as possible, and you'll keep your units full. And I thought to myself, no, that's not what I want to do. I want to do a nice property, attract a nice quality tenant, and keep them for a long time. And so we went in the complete opposite direction, and it actually has worked for us. So kitchen, family room, and these are the numbers on it. This is again about 2 years ago. So to buy this for $30 today at the auction, we wouldn't be able to do it. But this is roughly how our numbers work on this one. We rent for $1,100. Typically, a 2-bedroom over there rents for about $850, $900. Debt on the property, we have about $40,000. We do all of our mortgages on 15-year AMs. There's two schools of thought on that, right? Reserve your capital and not pay it down as quickly. We think that 15-year mortgages for us and all of our clients keep us fiscally responsible. So we make sure that the property is making profits, and it really forces us to save. So that's how we do it. But capital in this deal is $10,500. It's unusually low. Normally there's more skin in the game, if you will. Monthly debt payment is about $325. Taxes and association fee about $340. Insurance, our management fee, which is 15% of the $1,100, and then total payments $875. So our cash flow about $225. We do extensive rehabs on our properties, so when we're done with them, we don't have what I'll call is a lot of CapEx left over to do. New hot water heaters, new furnaces, new roofs. We do all those things mostly up front. So we try to take out that variable from a lot of our business. So net cash flow $225 plus $160. $160 is about half of your debt payment, right? Because on a 15-year mortgage, half of what you're paying in principal or half of what you're paying is principal, so it comes off the top. So these are what our numbers look like. We use a term called IE, or instant equity, with all of our clients, and that is how much equity are you actually creating in the property when you're buying it, right? So we try to keep that figure at $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 for a rental property. So if we're buying it for 50 and we're putting 30 into it, we want to make sure that it's at least worth $110,000 to $130,000 when it's done, right? And so they've got that instant equity that they're sitting on, or we're sitting on. So here's some flips that we did back in that time frame, back in late 15, early 16, Lake Villa, Lake Bluff. These were some more cherry ones. This is more typical of the type of profits that we see on our deals. 40, 50, 60 grand is what we typically average on our projects. So this was a long way back then. Now we have 2 projects out here, one in Algonquin and one in Crystal Lake. But back then we went all the way to McHenry to do this project, and so we called it the far out flip. But as we all have had to do, you got to go in a lot of different directions to get property now. But this was refinishing hardwood floors on this one. We have a contractor that does it for $1.50. We had a small kitchen, granite tops, and stainless appliances that we were able to mash together for about $5 grand. Windows, we buy ours at Home Depot. Normally they're about $125 to $140 for a nice vinyl window from a company called Climate Guard through Home Depot. Paint, tile, carpentry, HVAC. So project said it was 28. It actually ended up being more than that, with a lot of other little things that had to be done to it. But these are before and afters. We go with dark floors. It kind of covers up a lot of the blemishes. If you've ever had to deal with dogs or cats that have, completely ruined hardwood floors, you go with a darker finish and it gets rid of those blemishes, but it makes it look really, really nice. Blue tub. Yeah. So we got lucky on this one. It was actually a tax deed sale that a wholesaler was trying to dump, right? It's $15,000 on the house. They put a $4,000 fee on it. So we bought it for $19,000 plus some back taxes. Sale price, we actually ended up getting $132,000. So it was for the amount we invested, it was a very, very good one. So they're not all like that, right? I've lost money on half a dozen deals. We've got a website, RTO Property. You go to our flips. I'm completely transparent about it. I put flip on some of them. I put flop on others, right? It's just the way it goes. And a flop for us is, you make less than $5 grand. That's definitely a flop, right? Because your time is worth more than that, right? So, and this is just a conference that I wanted to mention to everybody. Joe and I have been to this a number of times, Chris a couple times too, but education is so important. If you're not going to go out onto bigger pockets and just educate yourself that way, this is a great conference to go to too. There's ways to get into it for free. Normally it's $1,800, but a great group of speakers and a lot of good information on it. So yeah, and that's my contact info. But I've got one more I can show everybody. And then we'll go to some Q&A. No, that's the same one. All right, yeah, so bigger pockets. This, just at this presentation, I talked about 2 of them. One was a newbie show, 210, that I thought was really good, and another one was a buy and hold investor, show 221. I think they're up to show 2. Does anybody listen to these? Yeah? Okay. They're great stuff. While you're driving, traveling, whatever, I mean, there's nuggets of information that are in all of them. So, who knows what a CPA flip is? What is it? CPA. Yeah, but what does CPA stand for? Carpet, paint, appliances. Right? That's all it is. You just put carpet, paint, appliances in it. That's it. You're done. They're very, very rare nowadays, right? They were a lot more common back in 11, 12, 13. Today they're They're tough to find. We got fortunate enough to find one here. Where do people, the majority of people, find their properties? Sheriff sale, raise your hand. Sheriff sale. Off market. Right. MLS. Wow. Okay, still a few. Bank deals, right? Setting relationships with local banks that can give you properties.
Local banks.
Yeah, this was a local bank, right? They came to us and they came to 2 investors and they said, hey, we're dumping this. It's foreclosure. We took it in. We're going to get rid of it. We're not going to put it on the MLS. Okay. We bought it. Well, here's some of the rehab. You can see it's a carpet paint appliances type of rehab. It was very, very minor. All right. Hired a designer on it. She selected the trims and all kinds of stuff.
What are your thoughts on that? Have you done that a lot?
Designers?
Paid someone to kind of come in?
I do it more now with higher end stuff.
Right.
I don't do it with low end stuff. This house was $700,000 house. Okay. So to pick Joe's really good at picking this. I'm not, right? You didn't pick it.
No, I didn't. Way too big for my taste.
Right. But I'm just not good at that.
Yeah.
Right. Know your strengths. I'm just, and so I paid her $3,000 for this house. It sounds like a lot of money, but at the end of the day, it can be the difference between selling it for $680 and $720.
It's little things.
And it's the little things. So, we added a lot of hardwood to this. Hardwood seems to be a really good trend in higher end homes, so we try to get rid of carpet as much as possible. But we put it in the basement, right? Because it seemed to be the thing to do, and from a price standpoint, it worked. But on main living areas, we try to get rid of it. So this one, we bought it for $505, okay? And this one's all about paying attention, because 3 months earlier, that house was available on the auction for $434. Right? So you missed it, right? You missed the opportunity. But bought it for $505. Rehab. Holding costs. Holding costs were $0, and I'll explain why in a minute. Sold it for $720. That's the biggest home run I've ever had, right? So, and those are really, really rare. Why do I say $0 on the interest? On this one, I actually partnered with somebody, and we split the profits, which I don't do anymore. I use other people's money if I need the money, and I take the profits myself because I know that what I can make, but half of that actually went to somebody else for just writing a check for $480 in the beginning of the project in 4 months, right? So
if
think
you
about
don't have the money. Who cares?
Yeah, well, I can get that money, if without having to split it.
Right.
So
but it's still a good opportunity, even if you had to do that.
Yeah, it is.
Great
you made $80,000, right? So.
And you hardly see that in flips today.
What's that?
$80,000.
Oh no, it's hard. It's pretty rare. So this was the property. So she picked the light fixtures, right? These. Right.
Yeah,
makes all the difference.
I couldn't do that.
Pick the colors on the walls, right? Okay, that's pick the carpet. Yeah, pick the carpet. Yeah. So, okay, and this is, so we had a speaker at one of our events. Has anybody heard of Lou Manfredini? Right? Mm-hmm. He came up after me after I did this presentation. I said anybody can do these flips, right? I'm not that smart. Joe's not that smart. Chris, nobody's that smart. It's just,
Chris is.
Yeah, you're not.
No, I know that.
It's just looking for deals out in the market. That's all it is. It's like it's not a special talent or whatever. It's just figuring out the numbers. Bought one in Lake in the Hills on the sheriff sale out here in McHenry for $102. Sold it for $212. That was at 8 Indian Trail, I think it's called 8 Indian Trail. Antioch, we bought one at 20 Lake Street and bought it for $54. Sold it for $121. Made a decent profit on that. A buy and hold. This was one of the ones that we got pulled out of. Bought it for $30. Sold it for $123. Not including rental income, so that was good. Okay, I had it under contract for $203. I told Joe about this right before this presentation. This is how old this presentation is. I had it under contract for $203, and this is a perfect lesson of try to work with your first buyer. Okay, I ended up selling that house for $172, and I made $5,000. I got killed. But it just, the inspector killed the deal to begin with, and then we just, got into a bad part of the year to sell the house and no buyers. It happens. That one I don't think we had a lot of work on. I can't even remember where that was. We did one in Wonder Lake on the McHenry auction. Bought it for 48, sold it for 155.
You're brave.
It was a good one. Wonder Lake?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're very brave, even today.
We've done 2 out there. We bought one from a tax deed buyer for 28 and sold it for 140. And then this one we bought for 48 and went for 155. So
Nice.
again,
Were they raised ranches? There are a lot of those over there.
yeah, I think it was. It was
Wow.
near one was across the street from the lake, and the other one was down the street. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, and Mundelein. One of the things I've learned with rehabs too, and now the market is becoming more and more distressed in what you're trying to find out there, so it takes more and more time to do the flips. You got to account for that. This one, $100,000 rehab, seems great on an $81,000 buy and a $279 offer, which we ended up selling for $260, by the way, and still made decent money. But the amount of time that it takes to do a $100,000 rehab, it's a lot of time. There's a lot of carrying costs, a lot of taxes, so taking those things into account is something that I didn't do as much as I should have early on.
What was the time frame on the rehab on that one?
8 months. Yeah.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Painful. So that's some of what we've done. And again, our website. I'll just take you there real quick. One of the things we do on rentals too, I'll just, this is our rental page. It's very simple. We take the link from this, and when we get a rental inquiry, we text it out to the person who's on the other end of the phone. All the calls come into a cell phone. It's very easy. It's very simple for them to see what properties we have available, and this is constantly changing, right? And then you just click a link, and this takes you to, the Zillow listing, right? So this comes up, right? There it is. So it's fairly simple, but the marketing piece to rentals is it's not complicated. It's a yard sign, and it's something like this, right? And they just turn over. I was telling Joe, I go, the market's hot. We've got 3 that we have available right now out of 200 properties, right? And including new inventory that's coming in. So as long as you market them and you expose yourself to a large number of potential tenants, crank up those rental rates, right? I mean, the rental rates, I feel like, the higher you charge, the better quality tenant you get, and every one of those dollars above that base level in your market is pure profit. So just, crank them up as high as you can. But that's, a simple little tool that we use to market our stuff. And then our fix and flips, this is just, this I'd never do again. This one right here. That is a bitch. That took 2 years to finish, and it took 5 years off my life. Thought it was the greatest thing in the world. Lake Forest, I go, all right, I'm buying a house for $360,000. I'm gonna fix this up for $200,000. I'm gonna sell it for $1 million. No, I'm not. I'm squeaking out maybe a profit on it. But
Everybody's had one of those.
oh my gosh, right? Yeah. And then these are completed, right? So, this is, you want to see the befores and afters. They're on the MLS, but you can kind of get a sense. There are the flops, right? There's a flop in Johnsburg, right? Problem with that one, I had somebody go out and look at the property. I looked at it in a video, and I'm like, yeah, that's good. That'll work. Yeah, we can do that. And the floors were slanted. I couldn't see that in the video, and all the other things, you can't see in a video.
It's
that you see.
Was that in the Highlands? The Stinky Highlands?
What's that?
It looked great in the 4K.
Exactly, right. I don't know where that.
I looked at a property up there and it didn't seem right, and there was a can in there, and I put it on the floor and it just rolled all the way to the front.
I had to level them.
I'm
Right?
like,
It was terrible.
is it sinking or is the back coming up?
Yeah. This one, and I let my investor do. This was a good one. This is that one in Liberty in Mundelein that we ended up selling at $260, and this is as simple as it gets for figuring out what's going to sway the value of a house by 20 grand, right? The color. It's blue, right? I let my investor pick the color. I just go with, everything else in the
My
neighborhood
blue worked
is-
out good.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Dan.
Yeah.
Purple, right?
The second.
Came out purple the first time.
Paint.
Oh god.
Painted it
So,
twice.
yeah. So, hope some of that is helpful for everybody. I'll just go into Q&A if you've got anything you want to ask. Happy to share. Yes,
Do you advertise your properties as rent to own?
we do. Every single family home that we have on our website is advertised as rent to own. It states the rent to own price up front, states the rental rate, states the terms of first last security. We lay all that out up front.
What's your thought process of going to that? Do you think you get a higher tenant, more money? What do you?
We get a higher quality tenant. We get more money on the rent, and unfortunately, I had another colleague say to me one time. He goes, "Well, you never want them to buy, right? Because you're getting higher rents, you're keeping the property, but actually, I do want them to buy, right? I mean, one of our goals is to really improve home ownership in Waukegan, or any town that we're in. So we'd actually like them to buy. We help them with down payment assistance programs through the Affordable Housing Corporation of Lake County. We try to do everything we can, but you lead a horse to water, and you just can't get these people to buy. It's pathetic how few we sell, and it's unfortunate. But yeah, we do get a better quality tenant for sure. Yes, sir.
That's got to be kind of mine. What percentage would you say out of 100 over 3 years actually acquire?
2%.
2%. Okay.
2%. Yeah. It's ridiculously low.
Sure.
Even though there are deals out there, like we have one right now where the house is worth 130, my rent to own price is 94. They've been paying rent for 3 years at $1,300, and $150 of that went to the purchase price. So they have $5,400 in their nest egg right now, plus last month's rent, plus security deposit. They have $8,000. I'm going to write them a check for at closing. They have a house they can buy for $86,000. They won't do it.
Can I have their number? Yeah, what was the average?
They won't do it. It's just
Why they're called
no. They could get a mortgage, right? One of the things we do for our tenants too is there's a program through Affordable Housing Corporation, which I'm actually on the board, and it's a credit counseling, home ownership counseling program that costs $50. We pay for all of our tenants to go through that, right, and learn what it requires to become a homeowner, right? Just again, further education. It still doesn't drive that number up. What?
What's the name of that program again?
It's through the Affordable Housing Corporation of Lake County, and it's if you go on their website, ahclc.org, right? It's $50 for each person to attend, and we have both a credit counseling and a home ownership counseling program.
So that's available for anybody in any area?
Correct. For $50, right? And now they have online courses for that as well.
So at the end of the 3-year initial lease term, they want to stay in the house, you give them another 3-year lease? Or
We
you
will,
give them
and
a
we
month,
actually,
or how do you do this?
yeah. So we give them another 3-year lease, and they don't lose their $5,400. It rolls over. Okay. The purchase prices do change, right? So if a house was at 100 and now the market's appreciated 30%, price of the house is going up, right? They have to execute within that 3-year period. So, but they continue to accumulate that down payment. Correct.
Great.
Yes, ma'am.
2 questions. So how are you acquiring most of your properties now?
Sheriffs now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any way you can.
We do get some at sheriff's sale. We do get some on off-market deals through folks like this in a room, a gentleman like this who says I've got one that I'll do a wholesale deal on. We work with again through the Affordable Housing Corporation of Lake County. They have a program that they're exposed to called the National Community Stabilization Trust. What it is it's a clearinghouse for all the big banks all over. So the big banks send all their properties that they want to dispose of to this clearinghouse. It's in Dallas, and then they contact nonprofit organizations all over the country, and AHC happens to be the one in Lake County that is the designee for this program. So before they go on the market on MLS as a first look property, they're offered to nonprofits like affordable housing, and we have a group of investors that are allowed to buy these. They're vetted. We know they're rehab quality, so I buy through that program as well. Yeah, that's, you know, it's getting harder. I mean, we'll find some on the MLS every once in a while, very rarely. We found another one in Lake Forest that was listed as land, right? But it was actually a house was there. You had to go and look at it to see if there was actually a house there, and so found that. But it's hard. Yeah. It's tough.
One more question.
Yeah.
You said, I apologize if you said it before, but so when you're renting, if you put $10,000, you want $200 back in rent. So if you were to do a flip, like what do you want your ROI to be?
Yeah. So we base our returns on flips as if we can't walk into the deal and make a minimum of $40,000, we're gonna walk away. That's our minimum, because there's too many mistakes that you can make, and I've made them all. That, you know, is gonna bring that number down. So, but we try to target ones that are, you know, even higher than that. So, and get lucky sometimes. You know, like this one in Crystal Lake. It's at 1024 Coventry in Crystal Lake. We bought it for 124, put it on the market, and 4 hours later we take a full list price of 230 on it. We were very lucky. You know, the market's hot right now in certain price points, certain markets. So it's, you know, you can get full list on them, but $40,000 is our minimum. Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned so you take $150 a month, $5,400 every 3 years, right? So you said that your rent was $1,350 a month, right? So that you're basically just collecting the $1,200.
Well, we're collecting the $1,350. Okay, $1,350 is being paid in rent on a monthly basis, and we're holding the $150.
So if they don't purchase, what happens to that $5,400?
We keep it.
Gotcha.
Do you put it in escrow?
We do not. We do not.
Should you?
No, we are not required to.
After that 3-year period, can they extend keep the rent to own going?
They can, right? The way the contract is set up is that we have the right to either say no, you're done with your lease, move out, we're going to sell the property or rent it to somebody else. But we try to keep them in the house. We try to, at least I do, and I encourage a lot of our investors to keep the increases in the prices of the home moderate, right, below what the property would actually appraise for, and try to still get them to buy it. You know.
So would you renegotiate a new purchase price there?
We tell them what the new purchase price is going to be, right? So at the end of that 3 years, if we had it at $80,000, now it's going to go to 100 or 110 or whatever the number is. Yes, sir.
On these properties that you got rent to own, when you do it, I'm assuming you probably get a note on them, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you get the signed contract from them, can you present that to the bank, and does that make you liquid again? Like you can, you know, the equity from it. I mean, is it not a financial obligation anymore? You know what I'm saying? Like some banks might say, okay, I got $1 million line of credit. Okay, you got $1 million out in houses that you got, but now you get a signed contract on this. Does that open that portion of your, you know, credit up to buy other properties?
I'm not sure I understand the question completely, but the way we do it and the way all of our clients do it is they'll take them in blocks, 3, 5, 10, 20 houses. We'll take them to the bank, whether they're in the beginning they required us to have them completely finished and rented before they would execute the loans to give us back our money. Okay. So we finance them out that way. What some of the banks will do or did do in the past is they calculated, hey, what's your rent to own price? Well, it's $100,000 on this house. Okay, well, the maximum that we're going to give you is $75,000 on that house. What'd you put into it? Well, we put 70 into it. Okay, well, we're only going to give you 80% of that number, so now we're down to 56,000 that we'll give you on the house, right? Because we only would get 80% of our initial investment is what these banks would and credit unions would allow us to borrow on them. But at least it gave us most of our capital back. I didn't give it all.
So they only give you 80% of what you have into it, not 80%. Or I'm sorry, 75% of what you had into it, not 75% of what it appraises at.
No.
Interesting.
They would appraise for well more than what we had in them.
So they should cash them out at 75% of the appraised value, not what you have in.
They didn't. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. We would not get that kind of money back out of them. They've always wanted us to have skin in the game. Now we've gone back since then and refied our stuff and taken money back out, and now it's a little bit different now that you're 5 years into the program. But
So it's
initially
not like
when
a
we started,
real cash out then.
well, it's 80% of your cash back. So if you have 5 houses and you invested, let's say $70,000 in each one of them, so you have $350 in it. 80% of that money is going to come back to you. Okay. You're going to still have $70,000 on the table. Yeah. Yes.
So you said you do rent to own for single families. Do you rent like multifamilies? Or
We do. Yeah.
What do you just do a regular?
Just a regular lease. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
How often do you raise your rents as far as yearly, by year, maybe 2 years?
You're locked in for 3 years. That's the other
3 years.
advantage,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Is your rent's not going to go up for 3 years. Your purchase price doesn't go up for 3 years.
Well,
Your rent doesn't go up for 3 years. You're locked in. So it's actually it's an advantage.
Well, that's because you charge a little bit more anyways. You said you were 20% over or something like that.
We're typically 20% over market. We're about 30% over Section 8, and we don't do any of that. But Section 8 pays about 30% less than what we charge in our market.
Now, why don't you do Section 8?
They don't do 3-year leases. They pay very, very little in Waukegan and the surrounding area compared to what we can get for our houses. We've not supported that program. At least in our block of properties. Yeah.
So considering how big your portfolio is, do you do your taxes or do you buy your properties under smaller corporations under your main corporation, or do you just do everything underneath your initial business?
So we do everything in separate holding companies for ourselves and for our clients. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the taxes. So when we first started doing this, we'd buy a property for $30,000, right? And the tax rate was 5% of market value, which is 15% of assessed value, right? Assessed value is 1/3. So 5% of $30,000 was $125 a month in taxes. Now the taxes have just skyrocketed up, and it's made cash flows a lot tighter, right? One thing that we do religiously every year is we go into and we have face-to-face meetings with the tax assessors on appeals. And we go in there with appraisals, we go in there with what you can do in Lake County is called a grid, right? To show, hey, here's a comparable property, here's another one, here's another one. Here's why mine shouldn't be assessed at $80,000 or $90,000, it should be down at $60,000. Year before last, we had our taxes reduced by an aggregate of $104,000 for ourselves and our clients. Right? Last year, less successful, we were only at 46, right? And it's becoming less and less. It's more and more difficult to get those numbers down, but you have to try every year because it's an aggregate. It just keeps, it keeps rolling, right?
So you do them on a block? Because you only can appeal taxes once every 4 years.
Once every year.
Really?
Every single year we go in and we appeal our taxes in Lake County.
Do you keep the homestead exemptions on your single families?
Okay, it's a good question, right?
Because you should be.
We are,
okay.
Right? On some of them, we haven't done it as religiously as we should. But one of the things that we do is we put because it's a rent-to-own program, we put the renter's name on the tax bill. Okay, and that way we get the. Now they're not responsible for the taxes, and we sign a document with them that's saying that we pay the taxes, but their name is on the bill. We get the homestead exemption for that.
Good.
Right?
A lot of people don't do that, and that saves such a
huge amount
simple
of money.
one-line thing you have to put in your lease.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Well, ours isn't one line.
You don't have to add them to the title?
Huh?
You don't have to add them to the title to
No,
be eligible?
you do not. No,
They don't own it.
They don't own it.
You just put in your lease that tenant pays property taxes. That's all you have to do according to
Is that
statute.
only because it's
Tenant pays property taxes through their lease payment.
Right, through their lease payment.
Right.
And
They don't pay them directly.
It
We
can
still
or
pay them.
doesn't have to be an escrow. If they paid it directly, then they'd be in some kind of an installment
Is that
contract.
only because it's rent to own? Or you can do that with any
It
single
just
family
says
rental?
through the funds they have to pay the property taxes, or they have to go into a fund that pays for from their rent.
No problem.
And you have to record the lease every year on the first,
I want you
otherwise
to
they
answer
won't
that
do it.
Is that is that in McHenry or is that?
That's statute statewide.
So do
Okay.
you have to show proof they live there? Just a question.
You have to record the lease every year that they're there on the first, otherwise they won't
You have
give
to
you the
record
exemption.
the lease,
You have to record the lease in the recorder's
With the
office.
county recorder of
With
deeds.
county recorder.
Right. Yeah.
So that's a great option.
So yeah, no, that's fine. So in Waukegan, what that means to us is a reduction in property taxes of over $1,000 a year. In Zion, it's over $1,300 a year because the tax rates are so high. Right, that's a huge amount of money if you multiply that by 150 plus homes.
What's the tax rate typically there?
In Waukegan, on assessed value is 15.2. In Zion, it's 21.1.
21?
Yeah.
They're 7%.
God, I thought we were bad here at 14.
Yeah.
So
Where's
consider-
here? Elgin or?
Yeah.
Woodstock.
Oh, what's
We got
So considering that you own so
14.
many homes or so many properties in that area, you can kind of almost set the grid based off of what you and a few other.
No, there's thousands and thousands of homes in Waukegan. It's I mean, sometimes I'll use my sales, which I bought, as comparables to what I'm trying to say as the property. But the assessors are not looking at a distressed property and comparing it to something that I've already finished as much as they used to. Right? They kind of caught on a little bit.
Well, 5 years ago, all you had was foreclosure.
That's right.
Short sales.
That's right. And I don't know what it is here in McHenry County, but in Lake County, if or any municipality, the rule was when we go into the assessor that if more than 25% of the properties in that municipality were distressed, you could use unqualified sales, right, in your comps. It's becoming harder and harder to do depending on the market. They're saying you can't use unqualified sales, and unqualified sales are
non-MLS.
Right, non-MLS, not exposed to the market, right? So, yes, sir.
When you buy your properties, you buying them under LLC series or?
LLC or S corps, depends.
S-corps.
Depends.
But every investment for every new LLC series or just all one in together?
Probably should be a series, but it's all one.
All
yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Your rental properties, how are you protecting?
Well, actually, that's not true. Some of them are in series, depending on the client. Some of them are just in a single LLC. How do we protect ourselves? Insurances and then umbrellas above that. Is that what you're saying?
Also hiding them in the LLC series?
Hiding?
Like each your properties. So you just like going to open like investment multi-units.
Okay.
You're buying them under LLC and like each house is
a separate spoke in in some of them yes, in other ones no. Like one of our clients has all of their properties in one S corp. Probably a mistake, but that's the way they set it up initially. There is a little bit more exposure in that because if you get sued on one, it can pull them all in, right? Yeah. Which is a concern, but the other piece to that, to be honest, is there's debt on the properties already. So if some gold digger looks at those, they're going to see that there's debt on the property. So it's kind of harder for them to say, oh, I fell and broke my leg and I want $10 million. So liquidate your portfolio and pay me.
Always that one is problem.
What's that?
Always this is problem.
Yeah, we're a very litigious society. So.
Do you have, obviously this is talking about the LLCs that they're owned by, so that's the liability protection. Do you have another LLC for the asset protection?
Not sure what you're referring to.
So a lot of the 10 properties, 10 LLCs, those are the liability protection. It stops there, but there might be one LLC that owns
all those
It's not a
LLCs.
series, or it
Right.
could be a series.
Right.
That all the money comes through. That's the
Operating?
asset protection.
Operating company?
Yeah, operating. That's an asset protection.
I know. Yeah, I probably should, but I don't.
Talk to Josh. I'll tell you how to do it.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any particular strategy around, you talk about 3-year leases, but do you do them in such a way so they're not ending on Halloween, going into a rougher season? You try to, is there a time of year you like those to end?
Some of our leases are 33 months, some of them are 39, right?
For that reason?
Yeah, for that reason specifically, because we like all of our leases to expire February, March, April, May, right in that time frame, because the leasing season is just like the selling season.
It's right there.
It's so hot. It's
Right now.
It's right now.
It's a great question.
It is a great question. Yes, ma'am.
Have you done any Airbnb, and if you had,
That's a great question. Yeah. Who's the guy that was on the panel that was doing the Airbnb with us? Remember him? Zach. Zach, downtown. So I've done one Airbnb. I'm just starting it. It's down in Siesta Key, Florida. It's a property that I bought. I planned to flip, but decided to hold it. And the Airbnb numbers are off the. They're crazy. They're crazy. So there's this guy I'm referring to that Chris was on a panel. It was a flippers panel up in Lake County, and he buys Warzone 3 flats, right? And he fixes them up, and he was renting them, and they're near the United Center, right? And his plan was, and he was starting to realize 2x on his rental because he was Airbnb-ing them. 2x.
Oh.
So if he could rent that building for $5,000, he was getting 10 on an Airbnb on a monthly basis. So there is opportunity to do stuff like that.
Can you
just have to-
explain the Airbnb a little bit?
Sure. So
A war zone?
They have daily drive-bys.
yeah,
Bad
it's-
neighborhood.
yeah, they're bad neighborhoods.
I'll let you figure the rest out, Ben.
Yeah.
You can't
But,
fool Ben.
but yeah, Airbnb, right? What it is, it's short-term rentals. So it's weekends, it's week-long, it's
Like timeshare type
no. So vacation rental by owner. It's like you're running. Yeah, it's like you're
just not familiar with it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like a hotel-ish.
Yeah, it's VRBO, home away, Airbnb. It's you come in, you rent that property for a long weekend because you want to come to Chicago and watch a basketball game, probably
Nice.
college, but yeah,
Right now,
yeah, and their rental rates are through the roof. I mean, but you have to strategically find those places that they work. So, do you do any, man, or no?
I haven't yet.
Okay.
Looking at it.
Yeah.
What kind of lease did you use and who helped you prepare that?
For my
Airbnb.
there was a couple that owned a house down there that actually is managing the whole process for us. So I kind of pushed it off on them. They had been doing it for a year on the house across the street, and they worked out all the kinks. So I teamed up with them, and I pay them a fee to do it. So I'm not as familiar with the lease that they're using, but I think it's all managed through VRBO, right? And they get their fee of and there's a lot of taxes involved in it too, right? At least down in Florida there's a 5% county, there's a 7% state. They handle all that, but even with that, they're still getting. In their first year of rental on a 4-bedroom house, they got $70,000 net. Right?
God.
Net, right? It's an expensive house in a very nice area, but that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
You mentioned that your apartments or your single-family houses up in Waukegan, you're getting 20% more than the other ones in the area. The other ones in the area, are they comparable to yours?
Ours are nicer.
Okay.
Ours are attracting a higher quality tenant, right?
Yeah.
So like Chris mentioned, he's doing stainless and granite and nicer units, right? Not only do they rent quicker, but you get a higher quality tenant, you get a hell of a lot more money, and if you look at what you invest in those upgrades, right, and try to amortize it over maybe a 3-year time frame or so, it's going to work. The other thing we do with our rentals too is we offer upgrades. So if we don't have an electric garage door opener, we let them upgrade to that for I think it's $6 a month. They want to add air conditioning. That's $40. Central air is $40 a month. Right? You can add that to your property. A fence, we're $12 a foot with our landscaper, times the number of feet that you want. We'll add that into your lease, and all those things add to the quality of your property, and the tenant is paying them off in 2 to 3 years.
So living a la carte.
There you go.
There you go.
Right. Right. So.
How much you getting for indoor plumbing?
That's not included with any of our houses. Right. Yeah.
But that's strictly on your rent to own.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. On multi-units, we don't add those in.
I mean, just a side comment, one of the things to really commend you on is, so oftentimes not necessarily in real estate circles, but the general population at large, and the whole picture they put in their head when they think of landlords is they think of slumlords and that don't take care of properties, and what I see what you're doing is you're trying to help communities, you're trying to help home ownership, you're trying to even though they resist it, they go kicking and screaming. You try to improve people's quality of life through repairing their credit and doing good things.
Yeah,
It's commendable. Nice
Yeah.
call.
Well, and one of the other things we do, we pride ourselves on the service that we give to our tenants. One company that I would, climb to the highest mountain and scream about is our management company. It's called Secure Pay One. If you have a small number of properties that you manage yourself, the time that it takes you to do that is much more valuable spent building your business in other ways than paying them $75 a month per property to take every single phone call, send out every statement, collect every dollar, do all the bullshit back office work that you really should spend your time doing.
Yeah.
And that's, we use them for all 200 of our properties, and Linda, right? She's dynamite. So Secure Pay One, they manage about 1,000 properties, most of them here in Chicago. They're really, really good. Yeah.
What's your percentage from single families to multi?
We're 80% single family. Yeah. Single family. Yeah. Other questions?
What other areas are you looking to invest in further?
So we started in I'll call it C plus B minus areas because they provided us really, really good cash flow, but we strategically picked the areas in those markets that weren't crime ridden, right? They weren't necessarily the worst areas in Waukegan or Zion or other. We've now expanded into A plus type of areas like Libertyville. Libertyville is the one that we've bought the most in lately, but it just doesn't provide the cash flow. I would not encourage anybody to go into those markets until they had a strong cash flow base of other properties before they did the appreciation play. And that's kind of what I'm doing in Libertyville. I'm saying that stuff's going to appreciate, and I'm willing to sacrifice the cash flow to do it.
But usually people in that area buy houses as opposed to
well, yeah, I mean, we do mostly multis actually over there, but we do some single family homes as well. But yeah, they do buy, right? But where we buy our rentals mostly is, well, almost exclusively Lake County. Yeah, anything too far away, it's hard for us to manage. We have one maintenance guy that handles all 200 properties for us, so it's important that we have 95% of our properties within about 10 minutes of our office. That's what we do.
How's that lawsuit coming over there, Zion? Is that settled or?
No, we still haven't paid a nickel to the city.
Good.
Yeah.
Keep it that way.
I know, right?
We had Woodstock trying to do that last year.
Are they home rule?
Yeah.
Yes.
They are home rule.
They're trying to.
They are, and they're gonna sneak it through.
They're trying to again.
Yeah.
Well, rental licensing.
Yeah.
Yeah. We go through a process where this attorney gave us where we petition the city for information on the property, and it's illegal for them essentially to try to jam the voluntary rental license program down our throat if we ask for that information. So we've not paid any fees to the city for that. So
in our case,
and it's so expensive. It's $75 a year per unit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why we
ours
fought
was
it.
going to be 100.
In Woodstock?
Yeah.
Come on.
No.
100 per unit.
It's 100 per unit plus an annual inspection fee on top of that. And here's the funny part. This all started because there's one woman that has 3 8-flats that just, I mean, the roof is caving in on them. There's tarps on them, so we're going to hit everybody up because of this one person.
So if you email me, okay, I could refer you to the attorney who is fighting this for a group of investors in Lake County. But essentially what they've done is they've pushed back against the town's requirement that you participate in what is essentially a voluntary licensure program for the rentals. It's not allowed. They're not a home rule. Waukegan can force us to do it. They're home rule. Zion can't.
Is it happening in Kane or Cook County?
Well, what happens is when you have a population in Illinois over 25,000 people, the municipalities get their own taxing body and their own rules, so they can do more of their own self-regulation.
Right.
That's the issue. If it's under 25,000, it's done by the state. So that's why you see populations larger than that doing these. They just need funny, or brother-in-law needs a job. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. Right.
Let's just say what it is.
Yeah. So, we try to push back against those.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And there's 1,400 incorporated municipalities, and over 300 are trying to do these, home
Are they
rule.
really?
Yeah, and 120 of them have lawsuits.
So there's one in Ohio. No, it was
This
Ohio.
is
or
still
was-
Illinois.
No, there was one in Ohio, or maybe it was Wisconsin. So the municipality actually ended up refunding to all the landlords because they realized that it was not allowed for them to collect these fees. They refunded them $211,000 in fees. They wrote them checks and gave it back to them because they lost the lawsuit. So that's why you fight against these
I
things.
love to hear that.
Yeah.
It's about personal property rights, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's what
Other
it's all
questions?
about.
Yes, sir.
So what percentage, just curious on this, like in the next 5 years, because single family housing is a lot different than multifamily. Do you still like that 80-20 ratio, or are you trying now to get into a lot more multifamily?
So one of the trends that Joe and Chris saw at a couple of these conferences, which I'm trying to trend towards, but it takes more capital to do it, is build to rent, right? So you have to find the right areas to build at a cost-effective level in order to be able to rent, because it's so hard to find the distressed properties now. So I'm actually looking at an area where I can build 4 flats cost effectively and get some concessions from the municipality to be able to do that. And
How are the impact fees?
well, get them all waived.
They're horrible.
No, get them all waived.
Explain to me how you do that, please.
I will.
That's
Yeah.
the next meeting.
I will.
Just on more than multifamily?
They get them
Yeah.
all waived.
No, on multifamily. Yeah.
After the meeting, if you don't mind, please.
Sure. Yeah. But that's important. I mean, it's to be able to find other places that we can find property. I think is because the number of foreclosures is just it's going down like this, and the level of distress on all these properties is so high that you have to have a crew that's got huge skill sets in order to build these things back up, right? And it's so yeah.
Is the goal, just curious on that, then, to go into the
Multi.
Freddie Mac, small valve, loan financing, where you're doing non-recourse, getting your low interest rates, long terms?
Yeah, their rates are a little bit higher though. We've gotten from a couple examples of rates that we've gotten from local banks on our portfolio loans: 4%, quarter point, 5 year. After 5 year, it adjusts to 3% over the 5-year Treasury, right? Which isn't a bad. That's not a bad loan, right? On I got one for one client that did $2 million on that. One for another one that did 2.5. Another one did 4.5%. And that was on $1 million loan, and then they do a line of credit on their equity. They built up this equity in their properties because they held them so long, and then they use those lines of credit to flip property. So
But is that locked in for a 15-year term, or is that?
well, those are 5s.
That's
right.
That's,
those are
that's,
5s.
That's the
We do 15-year AMs, and actually some of the money that we used to get was on 15-year fixed from some of these portfolio loans from these banks on commercial loans. They don't do it anymore.
I was just gonna say, I
yeah,
haven't heard of that.
And that was 5 and 5.25, 5.5 money. It's better to get 4.5 and have a little bit more flexibility and use those dollars to go do flips. My opinion, right? So, yeah. Anything else? Okay. Well, thanks, folks. Appreciate it.
How about it, huh? Meeting's not over. We're gonna stick around. You guys have been here before. You know the drill. Be out there. Fridge is open.
Yeah.
Yeah. Grab a beer. Grab a water. It's all free for you guys to grab. And Bill's gonna stick around as well for the rest of the night. Thank you. Thanks, Bill. Yeah, appreciate it. It was awesome.
No problem.
Good job.
Yeah.
As I knew it would be.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Investor Empowerment Series radio show. Be sure to tune in next week for another empowering episode. We welcome your feedback, so please rate us on iTunes and Stitcher, and visit us at www.investoремpowermentchicago.com or TannisGroupRealty.com.